Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros podcast. This is Pete.
And this is Derek.
And it's been a little while, hasn't it, Derek?
Yeah, it's been about a month, maybe a month and a half.
Yeah, I guess there
Too
hasn't
long.
really been a ton of news or games. I mean, especially on the Nintendo front.
But even I think in general, I think even though E3 isn't really around anymore, I think everyone expects kind of the June, maybe late May showcases to kind of still be there. So I think everyone's kind of just waiting around, end of March, most of April, even most of May. Kind of a drought of announcements. Like there's been some interesting stuff as far as like early access games and games coming out, but yeah, not a lot of news, I would say.
Yeah, I mean it's important to remember too. Last year around this point, we were 7 days, was it, away from Tears of the Kingdom?
Oh yeah.
We had already gotten Resident Evil 4 remake. We had gotten Metroid Prime remastered. I believe there's some other games in there too.
I think this. I'm not trying to undercredit, this year. Like I think 2024 has had an equally strong lineup to 2023.
Maybe, but
at least in these first 4 months.
It seems like there's been less mainstream juggernauts. I know you've had a lot of good games, Unicorn Chronicles and stuff, but
Unicorn Overlord. Yeah, like I think Final Fantasy VII. Is that juggernaut, but it's not like Helldivers isn't considered a mainstream juggernaut now. It's sold like crazy.
You're right.
Dragon's Dogma 2 did well. I don't think Rise of the Ronin did super well, but that is made by Team Ninja that makes, the Neo games. So there have been some notable games coming out.
Yeah.
Except for Xbox.
Oh, and Nintendo. I don't think that Princess Peach has been captivating minds too much.
It's sold really well, though.
I don't know. Did it sell really well in North America? I haven't seen any sales on that.
Oh, it was the number 1 Nintendo game, but I guess it's kind of obvious.
I'm not surprised with that. I must have missed that news cycle.
Yeah, the NDP. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll sell well. And, on the Nintendo front, the next big game, I guess, is Endless Ocean came out recently, the third one.
Yeah.
It didn't get
Luminescence or something?
Luminous Ocean or something. But it didn't get very good reviews.
No.
Apparently
65s.
Yeah, even beyond, obviously the graphics aren't as good as the standard that we're used to with next gen consoles. Even beyond that, apparently the content is light and it's the game's just not very well put together. And people are saying it's a chore to play, which is kind of disappointing. We also have Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door coming in about 2 weeks now.
May 24th. I have it somewhere.
There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of in the Nintendo front. That seems to be the main thing people are talking about right now.
I agree. Yeah, Paper Mario, and also and just the Switch 2, news kind of.
Totally, and there's some new rumors which we'll touch on in a sec. But before that, I just want to know: are you planning to get Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door?
Yeah, I think it'll be my Switch swan song, unless something drastic changes in the launch lineup kind of stuff.
Well, don't speak too soon. I'm sure there'll be more games later this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I know, but I'm thinking, if the Switch 2 comes out early next year, then maybe I'll just wait and get those games with the Switch 2.
Yeah, I'm on a firm no camp on Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door remake.
Oh wow!
For one, I have it on GameCube.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Complete in box. So if I really wanted to play it, at 60 frames a second, I would just play it on GameCube.
I know, but this is actually like a full-on remaster. Sorry, full-on remake.
It looks more or less the same. The lines between what a remake and a remaster are so blurred. But basically, they've redone the graphics. They've added some new things, new music, but it's still the same core game.
Yeah, but they redid every single asset.
Yeah, true, but it's like they redid every asset in Metroid Prime Remastered.
Did they?
Yeah, every texture, everything was completely new. Nothing was up-resed. It was completely 100% new, but the core of the game was exactly the same. But it was even apparently built on a brand new engine. So where the line, like I keep saying, to distinguish between a remake and a remaster now is a moot.
You're right.
Thing.
To me, a remake is a change in the gameplay. A remaster is like an upgrade or it's new assets, and there's up-res ports and ports.
Yeah, like to me, a remake. I mean, I think we had this talked about 100 times, but like examples of a remake: Final Fantasy VII, the new Rebirth, Resident Evil 4,
remake,
Resident Evil 2. An example of a remaster would be something like Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door, even Mario RPG. I consider
Metroid Prime remastered,
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, where the line might get a little blurred is something like Resident Evil Remake on GameCube, because for one, it has remake in the title, and well, it doesn't actually. Technically, it's just called Resident Evil. But it was essentially the bare bones of the same game. But I don't know what that's where the line gets blurred on certain games like that.
Yeah.
And even the Dead Space, the new Dead Space remake.
That's a remake.
But it still is so. It's not quite as different as something like Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil 4, where like it's completely re-envisioned into a new perspective. It's still essentially the same game with some new bells and whistles here and there. So anyways, yeah, I don't know. You know what? I remember playing Thousand Year Door on GameCube. I think we rented it, and I got about, I want to say 2/3 through the game, and it just kind of lost me. And I think I'm at the point where I'm just kind of over Paper Mario altogether. I think the very first one was great because I was 11 years old, but my real problem with the Paper Mario series, and has to do with the combat system in the new ones is obviously not desirable, but even with the strong combat system from Thousand Year Door, it is still incredibly basic compared to something even like Super Mario RPG. The stats never get too high. It never poses a challenge. I
would strongly disagree with that, because like you're just saying numbers are high, so it's more complex. Where I would argue that's not necessarily true, and part of the fun of Paper Mario is the really kind of fun timing attacks in their RPG combat. But what I'll say is, like, if you think about like the badge system and the items you can use and the party you can use, like there's a lot more options in combat in Paper Mario than there are in Super Mario RPG. Super Mario RPG is do your standard attack, use one of your 5 specials.
True.
Right? Like even the items don't really do much. Where in Paper Mario you have 4 standard attacks plus your party member. You can swap. All the items are quite game changing. You have the badge system, which is extremely complex. You can add new skills, take away skills.
Extremely complex. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it extremely, but
it's not extremely complex. You're right. I'm not looking at like Final Fantasy IX Gambit system with jobs and or Octopath Traveler. I agree. But I'm just saying, I would never, if I compare it to Super Mario RPG, I wouldn't say it's super basic. Like, but even if it is super basic or it's on the more basic side, I think there's enough there to be entertaining. And also, like, again, the timing combat is just so fun.
Yeah.
You're engaged.
The thing the timing combat's in Mario RPG as well. But I just think with Paper Mario, it's still easy. It's still a very, very easy game, and apparently
Thousand Year Door is considered like the hardest RPG ever made by Nintendo.
Really harder than Fire Emblem games.
Fire Emblem, 100% harder than Fire Emblem games.
I find that very hard to believe that Thousand Year Door is harder.
Well, when you beat the final boss in Thousand Year Door, then you have something to talk about, because that final boss is like notoriously impossibly hard.
Okay. Well, the other thing I have against Thousand Year Door and Paper Mario is I just don't care to sit through long text boxes of story. I find a lot of this. I mean, it's well written. It's funny. Even Origami King was funny. Like Paper Mario's always
it's like one of the better. Out of all the text and story games that I'm not willing to go through, this is one that I'm actually sort of okay to go through because it's funny.
I just think there's a lot too much of it. I was wondering about this. Why can't we have an RPG that has very little story? Like, why not? Why does every RPG have to come with this giant story?
Well, there are RPGs that don't have a giant story, or that the story's passively told, but you don't like those RPGs.
What would be an example of a RPG with no story?
Dark Souls 1, 2, 3.
But those are I do not consider those RPGs. They're not JRPGs or turn-based RPGs. They are basically action games with RPG elements.
That they are the definition of an RPG game. If you if you say that to anybody, they'll laugh you out of the room. You can't say that those games aren't RPGs because they're not turn-based RPGs. Are you talking about turn-based RPGs?
Yes.
Or JRPGs?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I can't think of any because usually like a main component of those genres is story, and a lot of people play those games because of the story.
Yeah. Well, not my genre.
Yeah.
But I will say
you have very few genres to begin with. So
if another big Nintendo game is announced this year for Switch, I end up getting the voucher program, Thousand Year Door is very, very high on that list. Like I don't hate on it. I'm not going to pay full price for it. But if it comes where I can get a voucher again and get another Switch game, I might get Thousand Year Door as the second game. Just announce Woolly World for Switch. Do it. But they did have a leak / hint / announcement the other day. Pyro, who's famous for leaking everything Nintendo.
Pioro, yeah.
Pioro, Pyro. He released a picture of a Nintendo cartridge that had the Nintendo World Championship on it. And people speculated all sorts of wild things about announcing a Switch 2. But it ends up that it sounds like it's just going to be a Nintendo World Championship game for Switch, and that's all we know, and it's $30.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this, Derek?
I mean, if they need to pad out their lineup till the Switch 2 comes, great. I have no interest in the game myself. I think it's a weird choice of all the games you could put on the Switch, but if it's low effort and like if they have a cool spin on it, like they have been doing these 100 games that have been being quite successful. So I could see them doing some kind of cool NES 100 spin, like you're all doing the same games at the same 5 minutes or whatever. And I don't know. There's ideas there.
I mean, I don't know if you remember the game's NES remix on Wii U and 3DS.
I own Remix 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean those are pretty cool. I wonder if this would be like an online version of that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Who knows? I mean, we don't really know anything about it.
I think apparently it's a straight almost port of the original NES game.
Oh, really?
That's what I think I read in that thread.
Okay, I haven't really dove into the thread. I figured that they do something new with it to charge $30. Well, what is the original Nintendo World Championship game?
It's something like there's 3 games and you have a time limit for each of them. You try to get the lowest time score after doing all 3 of them. There's some weird like 5 minutes of gameplay and then it resets, but you're trying to beat a timed score to get a high score. I don't know. There's something to it.
Huh. I mean, you know what? At this point, give us a Twilight Princess, the Wind Waker, Woolly World. Just give it all. Give us all the Wii U ports. Just do it.
Yeah.
There's also been some Switch 2 rumors that have been announced from a few different sources. Did you see about this, Derek? The new buttons on it?
The 2 back buttons, right?
So I think there's a back button on the Joy-Cons, and there's also a new button on the front next to the capture button. There's also, they mentioned Joy-Cons that are using
magnetic.
And also we saw some that it's compatible with the old Pro Controller, which is great news. Mm-hmm. And also it's some other people have reaffirmed the backwards compatibility. And it uses you can use the Switch cartridge, but there's a new cartridge for this, kind of like the DS 3DS situation.
Yeah.
What do you think those new buttons are, Derek?
I think the back buttons are just extra back buttons. I think we've seen kind of the Pro controller for the PlayStation 5, like the Elite for the Xbox and the PlayStation, having those back paddles. And people seem to really like them. So maybe that's just kind of Nintendo's spin on it, saying, they might be optional or ways to do something faster, or they might just allow that kind of Wiimote kind of. I'm trying to. Is the B button on the Wiimote?
Yeah, like a trigger.
Yeah, I might add just kind of an extra button to have like those Wiimote style games where 2 people are playing, but now you have an extra button for those people to play. And the front facing button, I don't know, like we already have home and capture. I guess we could be seeing more, online functionality, and it becomes more of that kind of share or like group up party. Like who really knows? It could be lots of things. Bluetooth. I don't know.
So my thought, I mean, my one, I'm very curious about the back button, especially because to me it seems like very I don't remember if it said all the Joy-Cons have it or just one of the sides has it. But
I think both.
just seems very. It seems like Nintendo isn't really the developer who is requiring more buttons on their controller. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what could that be for?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily mandatory, kind of like how the panels of the Elite Xbox controller are. I think it's more just they give people options to play those games.
Or is it a button that just releases the magnet Joy-Con latch? You know?
Yeah, but it'd be such a bad spot to place that.
True, because you press by accident and drop your Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, and I wonder if my dream speculation that the Joy-Cons will work as a Wii remote, if that makes sense for that mode, right? Or if you're holding the Joy-Con using that button.
Like that's what I just said.
Yeah. But I think the front button in my mind makes more sense, and just like you said, I would hope it's something like bringing up a friend menu. Because that's something that Switch is pretty... I mean, let's be honest, Nintendo's been behind on that for about 25 years. When it comes to like friends and joining friends. And I mean, they have very rudimentary options in 3DS and Switch to like join friends and invite friends. Like I think there's like a couple games. They tried to use the phone app. Miserable decision. I think it was a decision to save RAM on the Switch.
Yeah.
But I will talk about this in what we've been playing later. But I was playing Xbox the other day, and I was like just using the party chat and joining friends. And I really don't like the user interface on the Xbox. I find it like I'm using Windows. It's cumbersome, and I would love to have that all simplified into a single button where I could press one button, boom, on the side of the screen. My friend list comes open, and I can start chats. I can invite, join, and do everything from there. Mm-hmm. It's about time, Nintendo. I mean, Xbox did it in 2004, so it's about time, and I'd love to see that. I think it makes complete sense to have a friend button on the front of the console like that.
Yeah, agreed.
Although I guess it means we'll need to buy new Pro controllers.
Why?
Because our old Pro controllers won't have that friend button.
Oh, but it's not the end of the world.
No, I know. I'm more joking, but
I'm sure you can hold down, like it'll be like hold down the home button and it'll pop up on the side anyways.
Yeah, totally. But it's good to know that being backwards compatible with a Pro controller is a big deal because it means if I buy a new Pro controller, I'm already like 3 controllers ready. Backwards compatibility, I think that's just it's a must at this point. If they announce Switch 2 without backwards compatibility, there's gonna be hell on earth.
Yeah, because I was reading some people talk about the Switch 2 and just discussion about how well it's going to do. And people are saying, there are some people that the Switch was enough. Like, the Switch is still enough for them, and they're happy with the Switch, and the Switch is cool, and they don't need another Switch to get the job done. But if there is that backwards compatibility, it does entice more people to say, well, I might as well get the other one because I can just sell my old one, and I have all the games that still work. Where some people are like, if you didn't have that backwards compatibility, a lot of people would look at it and say, well, I don't need a second Switch, right? I don't need two different Switches for different games. Yeah.
And the other thing is that for a lot of people with Switch, they don't care about the graphics. They want to play Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers. And, I had a friend tell me the other day, he's like, oh, yeah, my dad recently got a Switch so he could play Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart. And a lot of people just want to play those games, or maybe they've missed they just missed the Switch for whatever reason. And the Switch 2 will be the reason that they can go and play this huge catalog of games.
Yeah, like I kind of think of even our sister who you gave your original Switch to. It's like when the Switch 2 comes out and a new Mario comes out, like will she want to play that, or will she get the Switch 2 knowing that she could play the old Mario Kart on it? Like it's always like those kind of people who are joining the ecosystem now, what they're gonna feel about a new console coming out next year.
Totally. I think the big question, though, becomes, if, like, let's say you and I buy a Switch 2, do we give our Switch 1 away? Is that going to be a thing where a lot of people are just giving their Switch, like, migrating their user over and then giving their Switch away?
I hope to God that I can trade mine in for some discount on the Switch 2 because my Switch 1 is like, it's going kaput, man. It's not even worth selling. I'm hoping I can get like $100 of trade-in value and they don't even test it,
Yeah. I have a feeling, though, when Switch 2 gets announced, like a lot of stores are going to be apprehensive about that because there's 150 million Switches out there and owners that are going to flood in trying to give their Switch back. and they're not going to be able to do much with those Switches. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give you like $50 off towards the Switch, right? Like,
Yeah.
Or Switch 2.
But you got to remember, like the 3DS and the new 2DS and all those kind of things, they sold for quite a while after.
Those are different though, because you couldn't play those on Switch.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like Switch 2. If Switch 2 is backwards compatibility, it basically makes the Switch 1 obsolete.
You're right, but I traded my PS4 in for $300 after a year after the PS5 was out.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, I do think there's a little more cachet with the PS3 and 4 because they are DVD and Blu-ray players. So it's like there's at least some sort of functionality beyond games.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still play PS4, but I think Switch has been out for so long. Like I guess we'll see what they'll do.
Yeah.
But anyways, Derek, that gets us into our topic for this week, which is we're going to talk about Rareware and Nintendo.
That's such a weird transition.
Beautiful segue.
How did it get us into this topic at all? Okay,
Speaking of rare games. So, Rareware, they used to be a second party for Nintendo. Nintendo used to own kind of a 49% stake in them. They used to be close partners. They've worked on Nintendo franchises. And Rare was kind of one of the first times I started to become aware of what a game developer was. I remember like games were just these things, right? It was like, oh, there's a monkey on the box, or there's Mickey Mouse on the box. Like, let's play the Mickey Mouse game. And it just, when you're a kid, things just sort of exist. You don't think about making them. It's like they're made in Santa's workshop or something. So when I started to see the Rare logo, I think it was around the time Goldeneye came out. I would have been maybe 12 years old, 11 years old. Goldeneye came out. No, I was only 10 actually. It was 1997. And I saw the logo, the same logo that I saw from Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. And that's around the time that it started to click that this Rare company was developing my favorite games. And at that time, they became my favorite company. Like this is my favorite developer and company. Like anything they make, I want to look at. And yeah, they became an important part of my getting into like more of the deeper knowledge of game design and game development and following developers and following the industry. What's your kind of history, Derek, about when you first realized Rare was a thing?
Yeah, like, I can still have this kind of memory where I close my eyes and I can see the Rareware logo appear at like in the SNES before the Donkey Kong game. But actually connecting the dots of those games, honestly, I was significantly younger than you at that time. That doesn't make any sense, but I was younger than you.
You're
to
still
the point
the same amount younger than me.
Yeah. I just mean I was so young that I didn't connect those dots the same way you were. I wasn't at that age. I think I probably didn't even realize that was kind of a meaningful thing until they were like sold, or until maybe like 007 and Perfect Dark was made by them. But like for me, I have this kind of memory of I think you are the one who told me that Rare is being sold to Xbox, and I remember being like, oh, like, does that mean those games are now going to be owned by Xbox? Like, I was thinking, like, oh, Donkey Kong is owned. I honestly thought Donkey Kong was like a Rare game, right? Like,
a lot of people. There was a lot of confusion about that when that first sale happened. People were like, well, what's going to be Microsoft's and what's going to still be Nintendo's? And some people thought that even though Nintendo owned the Donkey Kong franchise, that Donkey Kong Country and like the Diddy Kong and like the DK with the good character, like the platforming world of Donkey Kong before the Jumpman, the Jumpman times, would still be a Rare property. Luckily, it's not. But Banjo Kazooie and Conquer and Perfect Dark were Rares. Which was an interesting split.
Yeah, so again, like my memories, like I know you want to talk about different memories with Rare. Like I don't have quite the same level of memories with them. I do love a lot of their games, but I don't really remember their history of development as they were releasing games.
Well, it's funny because I was making my top 5 rare games list, and you could probably predict the entire 5 lists, and honestly, they're probably their most 5 renowned games, bar none. So it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if our lists are the same. Like I
Yeah,
wanted to
like
be
there's
creative with it, but I was just like, no, this is it. you know.
yeah, there's like to me like 10 really solid rare games that are, Nintendo games, and I've only really dug into maybe 6 of them. So,
But the other
yeah.
interesting thing is that, Rare's heyday with Nintendo, which I would say is from 1994 when Donkey Kong Country came out to 2002 when Star Fox Adventures came out, that time period was only, what, 7 years? And now they've been owned by Microsoft for 23 years. So it's like, when I really thought about it, I'm like, in my brain, like Nintendo and Rare were this kind of long forming partnership, but really it was only a couple of years. It was a kind of
Well,
short time span.
the only thing that's kind of surprising is if you think of the pedigree that they had at the time with Nintendo, they dropped 10 quite well regarded, quite nostalgic games that people love. And if I think about the games they've done since being an Xbox, I can name like maybe 3 that actually come off the top of my head, like Viva La Pinata,
Well, Banjo, Conquer, Sea of
Sea of
Thieves,
Stars, Sea of Thieves, yeah.
Connect Sports.
But I would never think of Connect Sports. And to me, Banjo Kazooie and Conquer are already like part of like the Nintendo world in my head. Like they just, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but anyways, I don't think Rare has kind of like made any big games that are like, oh yeah, like Rare can still make their own kind of identity with someone else. Like I think they really haven't. I know Sea of Thieves is huge, but yeah, for me, it's just those 10 years that you kind of named are the years.
Well, exactly. They were formative. I was more just kind of alluding to like how time feels different when you're younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like they were releasing a game every year on the N64, that time span felt longer and grander than nowadays when developers release a game every 5 years. So it's just, but you're exactly right that Rare under Microsoft, I mean, they haven't exactly thrived, I mean, has any developer under Microsoft? Like, it seems like every time Microsoft buys a developer, they kind of wither.
Yes. Literally, even the big ones,
Yeah, even like Bethesda hasn't really proved itself with Microsoft yet.
or Blizzard or anything.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you're right. You're right that like in that time period, let's call it 94 to 2001, the Rare like made games that were like all-time classics, right? Kind of like M. Night Shyamalan making great movies for 5 to 8 years and then like making nothing for the rest of his career. Like it's like they had their heyday, let's say, and like the thing is,
Yeah.
I know a lot of the talent who was working at Rare at that time is not there anymore, and we got to remember that companies are just people. So it's like, sure, it's a logo, it's a building, it's a company, it's their assets, their IP, but the people who made those games aren't at Rare anymore. They're probably retired.
Yeah, of course. Wasn't there a thing where a lot of the Rare employees ended up at Retro anyways?
No, they went to a company called Free Radical that made Time Splitters.
Oh, yeah.
But at Retro,
I love Time
A lot of the
Splitters.
developers at Retro, I believe, came from Acclaim. It's the teams that worked on the Turok series on N64.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just
Good history.
Yeah, it's just people, right?
Yeah.
And I know. Anyways, that's a totally different thing. I was gonna say the Retro developers went on to people who left Retro went and made that robot game for Microsoft. I can't remember what it was called, but digression. Anyway, so yeah, it's interesting to think that in 100 years from now, we'll probably think about Rareware only for that time period. Like unless Everwild eventually comes out and it's amazing. But yeah, Derek. So I would tasked you to talk about your top 5 Rare games, as well as your top 3 Rareware memories.
I don't really have the memories, but I'd rather hear yours. I don't really have them.
I mean, you must have some memory of like, oh, I played Donkey Kong Country 3 and this happened.
Oh yeah, I have some. I do have some of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a grandiose company-wide thing. It can be very, very one instance of a game.
Okay, I thought you went more like a perspective on Rare, but I see what you're saying. Okay, yep, can do.
But anyways, let's talk about our top 5 Rare games first.
Okay.
Now, let's go from 5 to 1, but let's go one at a time. Derek, what's your number 5 Rare game?
I hope I had to Google this, so I hope it is actually correct. I would put number 5 Diddy Kong Racing.
Okay, yes, it is correct. That is Rare.
Yeah. So I remember playing this game on the N64. I remember getting it for I want to say the DS.
Yep.
Love Diddy Kong Racing. It's a great counterpart to Mario Kart because it has a lot of the same feelings and joy out of it, but it's such a different spin on it, and it feels different mechanically. Love Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, we didn't own this on N64, did we?
I feel like we didn't. You're right.
I thought
like
we rented it, and then I
times.
think our neighbors had it. Like Jacob lent it to us.
Yeah, because I feel like we played it pretty significantly, but we never beat the whole game because we ran.
It's hard and it's big. It's not.
I know some of those final boss races are super hard.
Yeah, I remember Diddy Kong Racing feeling like it was very, very hard compared to something like Mario Kart 64.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll also say that with Diddy Kong Racing, because I'll just say it didn't make my list. But I remember the courses, the racing didn't feel as good as Mario Kart 64 even. It just didn't feel as tight or intense.
Yeah.
The weapons didn't feel as memorable.
I agree with all those things, but there is something really cool about you're racing and 3 people are in a car, and then 5 people are on hovercrafts, and then two people are on planes. There is some cool stuff about that, and I think if anything, Mario Kart kind of absorbed that idea into its games.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, for about 20 years, I've been clamoring that Mario Kart should take more from Diddy Kong Racing with its adventure elements and its unlockable single player and its bosses. It really, I don't know why Mario Kart has never embraced that at all.
It'd be interesting if they rebranded for the Switch 2 or the Super Switch. They instead of calling it Mario Kart, and I know this would be a huge gamble, they wouldn't do this, but they should just call it Super Mario Racing, and it would just be you could have different vehicles or Nintendo I think they need to expand the scope of it to outside just karts and outside just Mario, because they're already doing that with the characters, and they're already pushing that boundary with the actual race mechanics. But
You're right, though. If they introduce planes and hovercrafts and things, they can't really call it Mario Kart anymore because it's not.
Exactly, and I think Nintendo would never do that. They're a very safe and calculated company, and they wouldn't take that kind of risk of rebranding their juggernaut game.
Yeah,
even if it would do better, I think they would just play it safe.
Or they'll just call it Mario Kart, and then just have planes in it. Call them.
They would call it.
Karts.
If anything, they would call it Mario Kart something. So it'd be Mario Kart Transform or whatever. When your vehicle transforms into something else. You know?
But when we can speculate on Mario Kart forever, I still would love if they straight up brought Diddy Kong Racing back. I don't think Nintendo they don't see the opportunity for multiple kart racers in their roster. I think they say Mario Kart's enough. If we have time, we'll make a F-Zero or a wave race or something. But
which they don't
exactly, because Mario Kart's that much of a juggernaut. But it would be. I really do think there is space for something like a Diddy Kong Racing.
I think there'd be space for all 3 of those.
I agree. I really do. I love racing games, and
give them to a smaller studio. Let them make a AA game, and let's just see how it. It doesn't need to be the 15 million seller. It could just be a solid game that people want to play.
Yeah, and there's probably some way to approach it that could be different, right? Racing games don't have to all feel the same. Some can be more about speed, some can be more about drifting, some can be more about obstacles. So they were going to make actually a Donkey Kong Racing on GameCube. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I think I remember. There was even videos or screenshots of it, wasn't there?
There was a FMV video, a rendered video, CG video for it. When they first announced the GameCube, They had a bunch of games from Rare announced. They had a Donkey Kong racing game, they had a Perfect Dark game, and they had Star Fox or Dinosaur Planet. Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet. But of course, well, as we know, the Donkey Kong Racing was canceled, and so was Perfect Dark for GameCube. And but the Donkey Kong Racing was going to have like you riding the Donkey Kong animals, like Randy
I think
and
okay,
stuff.
yeah.
And I think that'd be really cool too, to be like kind of like an animal racing game. Like, you ride on a rhino, and someone else rides on an ostrich, and it'd be kind of a cool, almost like a Double Dash style, where like you take the two characters per race.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
But anyways, we can
And
talk.
I think
talk for hours.
yeah, we can talk about that.
Diddy
Yeah,
Kong
yeah.
racing speculation. Okay, well, my number 5 game is Donkey Kong Country 3. It's my least favorite of the Donkey Kong games, which I guess gives away 2 of my other top 5. But it's still such a good game. Like, it gets underrated a lot because it came out the same holiday as N64, if I'm not mistaken. The 1996 holiday.
It was a late release, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
96, you said? Yeah, I think it's 96.
Yeah, and it was only 1 year after Diddy Kong Racing, or Diddy Kong Conquest, Donkey Kong Country 2. So it was a quick turnaround. I guess all 3 Donkey Kong games came out year after each other, right? 94, 95, 96. Jeez, games came out quick back in the day, huh?
Seriously.
Like, imagine making 3 games that are all-time classics year after year, and here we are waiting 10 years for a new Bethesda failure, right?
The landscape is so different, for one. And 2, like they were sprite based, so like they already had the Diddy Kong sprite to just put into the next game.
True, but it's just like even like to say, okay, we're gonna make all new music, all new level design, everything, marketing, graphic arts, like in 1 year, and to think like some of those levels are so well designed, it is a bit of a mind blowing. I assume they were already working on it by the time Donkey Kong Country 2 came out, right? Like,
but again, if you think like forget graphics, because graphics alone take years extra. But even just like complexity of the engine and physics and whatnot, it's like it's a 2D side scroller with a pre-rendered, background painted level or whatever, and sprites just sit on top of it. Versus like, even getting to the level of, I want to say N64, like GoldenEye, you actually have all these different controller things. You have different ways you look. You have options. Donkey Kong didn't have options even. Like it was very like, I'm sure there were some, but it was like sound on, off, and
you couldn't change the controls.
Yeah, exactly. So I just mean, you're right. It's still unbelievably fast, but even a small team, like today's day and age, one person makes games like that.
Yeah, but I mean nowadays, if someone was making let's say they're making like a 2D side scroller like that, it would still take them multiple years. Like there's still
depends on the team.
I mean, I'm just saying it's still within 1 year. It's impressive to even with the engine and the simplicity of 2D game design. It's still impressive that they put together an entire video game that stands the test of time with its level design and music and art. And it's been play tested. There's no glitches. Like it's. I'm just trying to talk about how impressive it was that they released these 3 games back to back that way.
It's very impressive. I think you have a bit of a roast in your glasses. Like again, I love these games too. I'm not trying to downplay them. But it's like, of course they have glitches. You can Google like the hundreds and hundreds of glitches in those games.
True, there's glitches, but it's not breaking the game. You know what I mean? It's not. It's
and again, it's totally, but it's also a different landscape. Like they're well regarded endlessly now because they were like hugely awesome, intricately great looking playing games for its time. But now it's like there's the video game landscape is huge now. So to separate yourself and be one of those juggernauts or iconic, memorable games now is very different than it was 30 years ago.
True, but also we can argue both sides here. But I'm just saying, even for the time, there was a lot of developers in the '90s releasing 2D side scrollers on Super Nintendo that hold no candle to any of these Donkey Kong Country games. And this developer made 3 back to back, year over year, and these 3 games are classics. Nobody's talking about.
I will agree.
Playmates.
I will agree with that.
No
or Joe and Mac. I will. Yeah.
People should be talking about Joe and Mac.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Donkey Kong Country 3, I thought it was just an awesome game. It's just like, I like how they took the they further pushed where the art style could go in terms of, the first Donkey Kong was more the jungle theme. The second one had more like the intricate, not intricate, but like pirates and theme parks and beehives and castles. And this one's like, no, we're gonna take it to the cottage country, almost like Canada. We're gonna go to the woods and it's, I don't know, I really like it, and the music is great, and I like kind of the open ended structure of the game. I know you liked it more than I did. I think you 100%ed it.
Yeah, so it's my number 4 game too. So I'm gonna
Segue.
piggyback off you. I also love the theme. Like, when it comes to that cottage, forest, lakeside level design, I can't think of another game that really has done that, especially for a platformer, but even almost in any game, and done it so kind of artistically and creatively.
Yep.
And you can quote me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Donkey Kong Country 3 was a game that I got for Christmas.
It was your game.
Yeah, I think it was like one of the only Super Nintendo games that I actually owned, and like that is one of my kind of memories of. I remember having that game, and be like, oh man, I got the third Donkey Kong. Like, I'm the one who has the Donkey Kong.
I got the Donkey Kong.
Yeah, like I can just see that in my head.
I mean, you would have been like what, 6 years old, right? You were born in 1992, so
yeah. And I think again, I'm betting you got the N64 that year or something, and that's what they got me.
Yes.
You know what? I actually think I got it for Easter. I remember it being my Easter basket.
So you got it the following Easter, like not.
Yeah,
that makes sense because you being 4 years old is a bit young to play Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Well, not really. But...
No, I think I was 5 when I got it probably, but so I had beaten that game many, many times. I have 100% of that game later on. I think I 100%ed it on I want to say the Wii, like the virtual console.
Cool.
Yeah, love that game. The secret levels are awesome. Like the actual final secret ending is really cool. It's like a secret final boss and everything. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those games where I feel like with the Switch Online and the ability to make save states and rewind, maybe I'll go back and fully 100% it on the Switch because I never did.
So the only thing I didn't do and this is true for Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, 1 as well, but 2 and 3, I never got all the bonus coins legitimately. So I like there's a cheat in both those games to get all the bonus coins.
Oh, I thought you did legitimately.
No, and you need all the bonus coins to unlock all the secret levels. So I beat every single level, and I got every DK coin and every bird and every whatever secret world and stuff. But I didn't do every bonus coin in every level. But I just found out how, because I didn't know how to track it. There's no way to tell you what bonus coins you got and didn't get.
Yeah.
But now I actually found out recently, like maybe like 2 weeks ago on YouTube. There is a way to know if there's an exclamation mark at the end of the level. The name of the level and the overworld, that means you've completed every bonus coin in the level.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I'm gonna actually try to go back, I think, someday and try to beat Diddy Kong 2 and 3, knowing that, and actually try to get all the bonus coins myself, looking out for that.
Yeah, because Donkey Kong Country 2, I remember that secret to get all the bonus coins to do the secret ending.
Yeah, in the first level where you jump over the note and go all the...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. In the third one, you gotta type in your name, you gotta type in the word water, and then you have to do one of those crystal caves, and you unlock all the coins.
I remember that, that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes find like 100% in games like this, like a little bit of grindy bullshit. You know what I mean? Where like maybe back when I was a kid, it would have been something, but
that's why I don't really care about like the bonus coins. But for me, I wanted to play every level because some of the coolest levels are the secret levels.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's too bad they kind of kept those behind such a hard method of unlocking.
I know, even especially for 3, like to unlock that secret island in the middle of the lake, where you have to like spin around on the jet ski and honk your horn while spinning counterclockwise twice. Like it's so ridiculous. Yeah,
it's funny. It's interesting to see like even the progression of Rare's Donkey Kong Country games having more and more collectibles. Like you can just see how they like as they were progressing through their platforming, even into 3D platformers, like they just kept getting more and more and more collectibles. And this was something that I actually, we can touch on it in a bit, but like Banjo Kazooie is, the reason I don't love Banjo Kazooie is because there's just too many collectibles. And they obviously reached the apex of that with Donkey Kong 64. And then I think they jumped the shark or whatever with too many. Too many
DK64 is like so insane. You have to do like everything with every character. But you make a good point. Like even looking at Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, 3. One we have nothing really. You have bananas and balloons.
It's
Number
pure.
two, Number two, you have bonus coins, and there's not even DK coins. You have bonus coins, and then you collect those silver coins to buy some things. But then in the third one, you have to buy all these things for the bears and do the trading things for the bears, and then you have to get the DK coins and the bonus coins and the birds. Like, it definitely ramps up, and then you're totally right. Banjo Kazooie and DK64 take it to the next level.
Yeah, there's definitely, we could probably talk a whole episode about collectibles, too much, not enough type of thing. But I'll even say that the new Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, like one of the small issues I have with both of those games that I love is like even those games feel like they have a little too many collectibles. Like you don't need to have the coins to buy things to make it easier. Like there's just something about the purity of something simple that I really appreciate. That's seems to be lost on a lot of games. Even the New Super Mario Bros. Games, like they were better when it was just 3 gold big coins and that's it. I don't know, there's something about simplicity and purity in art that I really appreciate. Where,
I would love to dissect this further on a different podcast for sure.
For sure. Anyway, so my number 4 is Perfect Dark for 64. This is the first game I was like extraordinarily hyped for. Obviously, I was really hyped for Ocarina of Time, Mario Kart 64. I remember being excited about those games. But Perfect Dark was on a whole different level, where I remember that was when I learned about like the internet and gaming culture on the internet. And after Goldeneye came out, I was just dreaming of a follow-up and of like, maybe they should make Tomorrow Never Dies. And then EA took the license over. And then I found out they're making Perfect Dark. And the hype for this game was unmatched at the time. I mean, they were just throwing everything at this game. But so many modes, so much promise. There at one point there's a feature where you could take the Game Boy camera, take a picture of your face, and then have your face in the game.
That's cool.
It didn't make the final game, but and this is one of those games that like it was a mind-blowing jump over Goldeneye, which at the time had been the peak of first-person shooters, and this was just trying to do everything more. And you could shoot the lights out, and the light went out, and you could shoot a gun out of a guy's hand, and he'd pulled his hands up, and then you could like interrogate him, and it was wild what this game had. And nothing was like it at the time. And when it came out, it completely lived up to the expectations. Like it just very few games have had that level of hype in my entire gaming life and lived up to it. I can probably name about 5 games, like Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Resident Evil 4, and Perfect Dark. It's just wild. And I remember getting on the first day it came out, and I remember playing lots of multiplayer with friends at the time. Like, a lot of people had it, and it was just, the multiplayer was awesome. You could play 4 players against, like, 8 bots. You could set the bots up certain ways. You can make teams with bots. Tons of levels. Co-op mode, counter co-op mode. It was just freaking awesome. And, it was freaking awesome.
Yeah, super great game. It's higher up on my list, so I'll give my opinion on it in a moment. My number 3 is, and I'm betting yours is higher up on this, is 007.
Goldeneye. So that's that's my number 3, by the way.
Okay, so my Perfect Dark's after the Goldeneye, so we just swapped those two basically.
Okay.
I really, really like Goldeneye. It was one of those games where it's like, oh, you can actually unlock cheats for this game, and that for some reason like was kind of my first hook into collecting and replaying a level to get the best outcome and like doing harder difficulties. So there's that kind of moment of, oh, like there's actually something to do here and to chase. Like this is kind of that first moment of like chasing a single player content in a game.
Yep.
And if anything, the multiplayer is what really, really sticks out. And I'm sure you have a million memories like I do. Odd Job is unfair, or proximity mines in the facility, or getting the golden gun. Like there's so many memorable moments of 007 and Goldeneye, but it's so funny. Like I played it, I want to say like maybe even a year ago with some friends, and like it just doesn't hold up the same way because it honestly just has to do with the controls. The controls are just so different than what modern first-person shooters are now that it's like my brain doesn't know how to play the game properly anymore.
Yeah.
It's such a different style of first person shooter where it's like, it's not about accuracy and speed. It's like strafing left and right while you
Now,
try to.
did you ever beat Goldeneye on Double O Agent?
I know you're working through that right now. I never did. I played the secret levels because I know we had a way where one
of
your
our
friends
neighbors,
unlocked,
our friend's brother did it for us.
hacked it.
He didn't
So I have
hack it,
played every
just,
level.
He just grinded it. Maybe he game sharked it. I really don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have played every level. No, I haven't done the 007 and unlocked all the cheats even. I think I have once unlocked the invincibility cheat myself, which is like the hardest cheat ever to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, my memories of that game are like really comes down to the multiplayer and trying to get those cheats. Like I can still remember doing like the third level, the runway, and just like running straight to the plane because you had to beat it in like 23 seconds to get the big head or paintball mode or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of memories of that game. Great game.
Yeah, it's a really great game, and it's funny you mentioned that because when it came out for Nintendo Switch, I met up with a bunch of my old friends who are all old. They're older than me, and they remember GoldenEye, and we actually did the remapping of the controls so it plays like a modern game where it's like dual analog, and we played the multiplayer, and yeah, it was awful. Like we did one round, and we're like, this is not fun at all, and you're right. It just kind of turns into like who can kind of get the drop on someone and strafe around them in circles better.
Yeah.
It just didn't. It did controls. Even with the modern controls, the game is based around an auto aim system, right?
Yeah.
So your shooting automatically aims for the enemy if they're within your sight. So it kind of like there's not really about aiming the gun. It's really just about like pointing at the guy and like keeping him in the center of your screen. And yeah, the multiplayer was really not good. But the funny thing is, I have actually beaten it now on Double Agent. And
Nice.
I haven't done the 2 secret levels yet, but I beat the cradle. I'm on the secret levels. But
Aztec and Ruins, I think, or something.
Aztec and Egypt.
Yeah.
But the single player holds up so well, I gotta say. In a weird way, the single player is better than most other first-person shooter single players. Even I want to say Perfect Dark. The hit detection and the what's it called? Like the feeling of shooting an enemy.
Like the feedback.
The feedback feels great. Like it still feels great in a way that other games don't have that feeling. Like I can't. It's like when you hit someone, you really feel the weight of it. And I mean, the fact is, like you could shoot someone and they had all these animations of how they die. It was really cool. But the other thing with GoldenEye that modern first-person shooters don't have is there are so many enemies at times. Like there's times where there's like you're just mowing them down and mowing them down and mowing them down. And modern shooters either throw robots and aliens at you, or even like a game like Halo, like there's not that many enemies. There's like maybe a dozen of them spread out, and they make harder ones and the little ones. But GoldenEye was like, no, they're all humans. And they will throw like 30 of them at you at a time. Frame rate be damned.
No.
Oh yeah, there's times where there's so many, and if you run away, they'll chase you, and then there'll be like so many loaded in. And I gotta say, playing GoldenEye again on Switch has been one of the great joys of Switch for me because it's up-res, it's widescreen, the frame rate's better. Like it actually does feel like a remaster. And just like the thing is with the single player, especially doing it on Double O Agent, it almost feels like a puzzle game a little bit, like where like
a sandbox kind of game.
Yeah, like a sandbox game, but it really is like a puzzle. Like you have to do this, then this, then this, and this follows this, and you have to like, and then you also have this kind of really fun like arcade shooting where you're gonna be like ducking and jumping out behind corners and like getting the best angle on someone and not running out in front of a turret. So it becomes like this kind of order of operations puzzle feeling to the game that's really rewarding to do right. And it's just, I don't know, that's why it's my number 3. It's like, it's an iconic game that like, I can't believe playing it how well that single player holds up. Like, I guess it's janky in some ways and you're redoing levels again and again. But it just feels really fun. And, I don't know. It's just, it's iconic. And I wish first-person shooter single players were less linear and more ambitious like this, and more like level-based mini puzzles like this. Too many of them are, running down the corridor, and I mean, there's a few standouts like Titanfall 2, but even that's fairly linear. And there's not really dealing with NPCs, and you're not like trying to save hostages, and there's not. It doesn't feel like the NPCs feel like real characters. It's hard to explain. Like you need to talk with them, and you need to escort Natalia, and she's shooting with you, and then she's hacking something, and there's the hostage levels.
Games you might really like, Peter, are like games like Deus Ex or even like Prey.
Yeah, or Cyberpunk, right?
Yeah, but Cyberpunk is a bit more like open world RPG, like Grand Theft Auto, where I find Deus Ex and Prey are a little bit more like there's like play it your way, but all like I don't know how to explain it. Like it feels a little bit more sandboxy. Like you have to kind of problem solve yourself.
Yeah, Dishonored too, a little bit, right?
Yeah, Dishonored is very similar, but it's more like how you're gonna assassinate everyone. Where Prey and Deus Ex is more like espionage, or Prey is kind of like how do you get access to this room if you don't have the key card. It's like, well, you can go find the key card off a dead body, or you can like shoot the vent and the vent will close and the door will like. There's all these different kind of ways to get in places. It's quite cool. Is
Prey level based though? Because I know Deus Ex is not level based.
Prey is not necessarily. It's not level based, but usually it's like there's missions on the ship, and you end up in a kind of a big area that is like you can do the whole mission in that area, and then you go to a different area. Okay. It's a little bit like Dead Space, where it's like the whole ship is accessible, but it's like you're kind of in one focused spot for a while.
Okay, I mean, I that is cool. I'll look into it if it's on Game Pass, especially. But I would love to have like 30, 20 level based things where you're just like you're starting here. This is your missions. Like I know Time Splitters did it too. But yeah. There's something about that level based. The simplicity of it makes it really feel like you're just doing these little puzzles. Mm-hmm. And some levels really do feel like the train level is like, wow, this is like a more shooter level, and other levels are more puzzle levels. So it's like this really interesting mix, and the variety is really intense too. Like I was saying, the train level is one thing, then you have like the facility, but then you'll have like a level that's a big open snowy field, and then you'll have the jungle level, and it feels like it's kind of tackling all these different styles in one game. Where other games seem to fall, first-person shooters especially, seem to kind of fall into a lane, right? Like it's like, oh, it's either an open-world shooter, or it's a corridor shooter, or it's an online shooter. Where Goldeneye seemed to be kind of this, they tried so many different things. It was so experimental. I would say the single player in Goldeneye is better than Perfect Dark.
So my number 2 is Perfect Dark. And I actually, even though I somewhat agree with you, where it's like I have more nostalgia for GoldenEye's campaign and for its multiplayer, I still think Perfect Dark is just the more memorable and interesting and exciting when I think back of those games package for me. I think back to, like you mentioned, counter co-op. I remember playing counter co-op with you and being like blown away.
It's amazing.
Being like, oh my God, I can play the enemy. Like no other game has ever put that in a meaningful way. Like, how cool would it be if I could play Halo and I could be the enemy? Like, that would be so fun.
Why has no one copied this idea?
I know. I honestly, especially now that so many games are online, like, why can't you just throw me into different enemies and have fun with that?
No kidding.
Just ridiculous. Anyways, but Perfect Dark, I find, you said kind of the puzzle part of it, and I find Perfect Dark is very similar. Like, I played with my friend. We went through Perfect Dark on the hardest difficulty, and I think we got probably 12 levels in, and then we just ran out of time and switched games. But the things you have to do in that game on the hardest difficulty are so intricate puzzle problems, because like you said, they have things where you can shoot a gun at someone and make them be your hostage. Like there's times where like part of the mission is you have to make someone go enter the code in the computer for you. Mm-hmm. So you have to like hold the gun to them, but then you have to make sure no one else is coming at you to shoot you. And when I think of first person shooters, the reason Perfect Dark kind of jumps over GoldenEye to me is the guns.
Oh, so cool.
Like, so cool. Like, I remember watching you play Perfect Dark, and like the first time you used the laptop gun, you found out there was that second mode you could throw the laptop on the ground and it became a turret. I remember that moment being like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then how every gun you could go to the shooting gallery and get like a gold star, and if you get them all, you unlock another gun, and like there's just so many cool things. And the guns again are just so awesome in that game.
And
Some of the alien weapons.
It's also worth mentioning that when GoldenEye, when you reload a gun, the gun just kind of like dips off the screen and comes back reloaded. Mm-hmm. But Perfect Dark, there's a hand animation reload for every single gun, and at the time that was like insanely ambitious animation. And I, speaking of those alien guns, it's like there's funny ones too, where it's like to reload this alien gun, you're like putting these little orbs inside of like an open socket on the top of the gun, like like it's a biological gun or something. So they had really creative ways.
So I mean, like those games to me are both like the cornerstones of first person shooters. Like those two and like Halo 2 are like to me the trifecta of like that kind of defined first person shooters in my head. And of course like Doom or whatever. But I just have a spot of Perfect Dark being like just a more fascinating game to me, despite GoldenEye being the more heavily played game by me, or the one that I have more nostalgia for, I'd say.
Yeah, and my opinion might change because I'm gonna go back and replay Perfect Dark and do the 00 Agent on that as well.
Yeah, I want to play
I've
it
never
again
done.
too.
So, and that's on Xbox Game Pass, and it's like modernized properly.
Is GoldenEye on Game Pass too?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, you said that as if you're gonna say but. Okay, yeah.
I believe so,
Cool.
but I played it on Switch because I believe there's something about the Xbox version that's I don't know. I don't know why I played it on Switch because it feels more like it feels more like an N64 game, where the one on Xbox there's something to it.
Yeah, they up-resed it or something, right? And it is different.
Well, there's something to be said about the controls changing, and I can't say this because I haven't tried a GoldenEye on Xbox, but on a Nintendo Switch Online app, you really do feel like you're playing it on N64. Where I believe on Xbox they kind of like they change around some of the auto aim function, so it like doesn't feel like the same game. And at this point, if they release Perfect Dark on the N64 Online Switch, I play it there instead of Xbox. Just because it has that retro feel, right? It's like playing Mario All Stars or playing the original new Mario Brothers, right? It got more of the feel. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to Perfect Dark, and those two games, Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, are like almost made inside of this time capsule where nothing else has ever accomplished what those games did in terms of single player mission structure. And it seems like first-person shooters kind of went back.
I think Time Splitters 2, I think, also is on that list.
Totally, yeah, but it wasn't as good.
I love Time Splitters.
I love Time Splitters 2, but to me, though, it's a more multiplayer game. The single player didn't feel as iconic or memorable as Perfect Dark and GoldenEye.
I disagree with that.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, anyways, throw Time Splitters 2 in that pile. We still don't have enough of these types of games now, right? I'd love to see a first-person shooter do these kind of things.
And again, even looking at games like, Titanfall 2 is a little bit level based, but I think about the Halo 2. Like, again, I talked about Halo 2 being one of those cornerstone first person shooter games for me. And the newest Halo is this open world collectathon. Like, it's another open world game. Like, how could you do that? Like, Halo 2 was an awesome game. Halo 3 was really good. I didn't play some of the later ones, but
Halo 1, 2, and 3 are great games.
Yeah. But once, I just can't believe they switched to open world. As if we don't have enough open world bloat games already. They had to put Halo in that, and I just can't believe people like that.
Well,
like,
we can talk for a whole hour about how disappointing Halo Infinite was, but
let's stick
the thing with Halo Infinite was it should have been fully open world. It's like, here's an open world, but you have to go here. And then here's another chunk of open world, and you have to go here. If you just made it like Breath of the Wild, where it's like, oh, I can actually just go anywhere I want, and unlock bases, and go to encampments and get guys. Like, if it was truly open world, it would have been cool, I think.
Yeah, you say that, but then it just falls into like the Far Cry feeling.
But unless it has like a Breath of the Wild moment, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, it really pushes the first-person open world genre forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do your number 2.
My number 2 is Donkey Kong Country 2.
Interesting.
I have a feeling your number 1 is all that's remaining, right, Derek? I have a feeling your number 1 is Donkey Kong Country 2, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I didn't put even though Donkey Kong Country 1 I have a huge heart for. To me, it's my least favorite of the 3. I was so young when it came out. by the time I was able to play these games, 3 and 2 were already out. So 1 just doesn't have the same spot for me in my heart like it does.
True, yeah. Well, let's talk about Donkey Kong Country 2 for a second, because that's your number one and my number 2.
Yeah.
I remember this game was really awesome, and I remember it came out when we were first moved to Canada, and it was impossible to find that holiday. It's like you could not find it. And so I think you or I wanted it, and then we didn't get it till like the new year later, and we got it along with the Toy Story game that came out, because those games...
Yeah.
The Toy Story game we found out later was like made super impossible, so kids never beat it. And we never did. But Donkey Kong Country 2 was excellent. And just, the biggest impact for me was just the new art style and like the zany places the game went. Like it's like they decided to, it seems like with Donkey Kong Country, they got the quintessential, snowland, grassland, mountain land. But this one was like, no, like we're going to be in like a graveyard of pirate ships and a swamp, like a toxic swamp, and a amusement park and a
beehive
and like a haunted woods and
a vine, like a
castle,
like thorny vines and a helicopter.
So cool, and had some of the best music. The music is so good. Sticker Brush Symphony, tons of great songs. I mean, I don't even know what else there is to say about this game. It's just it's great.
It's Sticker Bush Symphony.
Sticker Bush Symphony, yeah. A lot of people say this is their favorite Donkey Kong Country game, bar none, and some people will say this is the best 2D platformer of all time, bar none. So it's got that pedigree.
I couldn't agree more. Donkey Kong Country 2 is like, I would say it's definitely in my top 5 favorite games of all time. It's up there with, it's up there with Super Mario RPG. Like, to me, it's Super Mario RPG and Link to the Past. Maybe Yoshi's Island's up there. I know some new games that probably come up and might actually beat these games, but these are like kind of my historical ones. But Diddy Kong 2 or Donkey Kong 2 is up there.
It's my 29th favorite game of all time.
Oh my god, the fact that you ranked all the way. I really should rank mine in a long order. It's just like there's
Tropical Freeze is 19 and Donkey Kong Country, the original, is number 6.
I can't believe that's number 6. Like, that's an amazing game, but man, there's so many games that I would put higher than that. Donkey Kong Country 2 is again, like, you kind of nailed it on the head. I love really creative level design, and like I love when they just go like, every game that I play, one of the things I like the most is when the world or levels are very varied. When you just have different themes running through them, especially when it comes to platformers. Like, when I think of I'm trying to think of a good one. Like, even like Metroid, in some ways, I know it's a very different kind of game to Metroidvania. It's like, it feels very one scope, like in some of the 2D ones. But when you have Metroid Prime, it's like, oh, we have the fire, the ice, the sand. Like, I like when there's different elements.
I think the Prime series, you're right, did a better job of breaking up the themes of the worlds than the 2D
exactly. Ones. And I think, that also is kind of why Donkey Kong Country 1 is a lot lower in my head. Like, I like some of the themes there, but they all felt, it's going to sound weird, almost more cohesive. And I liked Donkey Kong Country 2 because it was almost jarring how different they were. But it's like, oh, the moment I'm in like an ice cavern, like the gameplay is different. I'm slipping and sliding. Oh, I'm in the honey. I guess I can climb the walls now. So I just felt like there's a lot more unique kind of gameplay with each of the designs of the world.
Well, don't you remember too? You could also fully transform into the animals in number 2 and 3.
Oh yeah,
you couldn't do that in the first one. So you could literally fly as Squawks, and some of the best levels you are Squawks.
Oh my gosh, like whatever that level is, like Windy Woods, the one where you're in the spider and in it's all foggy and you had to like make your spider webs to jump on.
Yep.
Great level. The snake.
Anyways,
snake, yeah, like all the characters, all the animal characters are really fun to play as. Levels are great. Bosses were interesting. Like you said, the music is phenomenal. And I find every level memorable in a weird way. Like, I can, I think about the roller coaster levels. Like, you have one roller coaster level where you have to hit all the boxes so the ghosts don't kill you in time. But you have another roller coaster level where you're like actually in a race and you have to get to the front of the line. And I just thought I don't know. I just thought it was
It's
an awesome
bursting
game.
with creativity, and
Yes, that's exactly that's a great word.
I would equate it to being like the Terminator 2 sequel of games. Like it is the best sequel you can imagine. It expands on the original. It adds to it. It's amazing and creative in its own way, and it is in almost objective terms better than the original.
Yeah, and it's just for my own heart, like it's one of those games I've played like endless number of times. You know when you have like a soft spot for a game that you just like know the ins and outs of. Like I know Metro Prime for you, like
Yeah.
you know exactly what every room is, and you know exactly where to go, and like it just feels like a comfort food to you.
Yeah.
Like Donkey Kong Country 2 is exactly like that for me, where it's like I can in my head I can envision where the levels are on that first pirate ship, like on the overworld, and I remember every single level, and I remember like where the secret warp box is, and I remember how to do this. So yeah, that game it's comfort food for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's objectively a better game than Donkey Kong Country 1. But the reason Donkey Kong Country 1 is my number one and one of my favorite games of all time. And I know there's
go
been
for
like
it.
this kind of online backlash of it being, too basic or not as good as Mario World or what have you. The thing to keep in mind with Donkey Kong Country 1 is that it has a purity about it where it's like you can play from beginning to end and you don't feel like you've missed every secret and sideshow thing to do. Like you can literally
Yeah, you're just trying to get to the end.
exactly, and it's just kind of there's this purity to it, and as well as you said, the cohesive levels or the world themes are cohesive. You kind of have to start with that. You know what I mean? You can't have the first game be the pirate ship in the toxic
Yeah.
swamp. Like the fact that Donkey Kong Country 2 does go to these awesome places on that other island kind of is complementary to the fact that Donkey Kong Country 1 is on the basic Donkey Kong Country Island with your kind of your archetypal themes, right?
Totally, and even then, it still had some quite good variation, like the forest versus the factory versus the Aztecs versus
Totally.
underwater even, and also amazing music just to add.
And I think the other thing with Donkey Kong Country is I would say the music is better than number two. It's more iconic. Like it's more like it's more memorable. And the other thing is that at the time when Donkey Kong Country came out, the graphics were mind blowing. It was like you were watching Toy Story on N60 or on Super Nintendo. It was like, how did they do this? And I remember when everyone was super impressed by things like Resident Evil on PlayStation with the pre-rendered backgrounds, like how impressive that was to see that level of quality. And then Ocarina of Time did it, and then Resident Evil Remake did it. So like pre-rendered was so cool, but Donkey Kong Country is actually the original king of pre-rendered graphics, where they pre-rendered these CG animated animals and then woven it into making this game. And it's just awesome. It's a game that I go back to every once in a while. I'm just like, I've already beaten on Nintendo Switch Online. Like, it's just a game that I turn on and I can romp through in an hour and a half. And I think it's a forever classic game. And the other thing is where, if, let's say you're trying to learn or teach someone like the fundamentals of platforming game design, let's say. I think something like Mario Bros 1, 2, and 3 are actually a little too challenging for someone young. But Donkey Kong Country was that perfect on-ramp for a game that was, not overly complicated, but it ramps up beautifully and introduces new ideas in every level beautifully. Like it follows that kind of, the much talked about staple of Mario design, where it's like introduce a gameplay element, get harder, get more complex as the level continues, and then at the end of the level, that's the end of that gameplay element. And then the next level has a new gameplay element. Donkey Kong Country represents that perfectly. Where I feel like Country 2 and 3 are kind of more experimental, and they kind of maybe mix and match game elements from different or level elements into other levels. It feels like Country has this purity where each level is representing its own gameplay ideas.
See, that's that's the exact opposite of that I feel between 1 and 2. Where like 1, I find a lot of levels are very similar and like, oh, it's like, there's barrels and you have to shoot them and blah, 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 and get through the enemies. Number 2 is like, this is the theme of this level. Like you have wind blowing up and there's hooks and cannons firing at you. And then this one's, oh, the acid's rising this one. Or like, oh, like there's an evil fish that's trying to eat you while you swim. Every level is actually completely unique. Where I find number 1, even though they all are great levels, Like, if I think of a cave level in Donkey Kong Country 1, all of the 6 cave levels in that game feel a little bit the same to me. There's a tire in it, and there's some moving left and right spots. Like, it feels like the same caves.
Well, that's why I agree, but that's where Donkey Kong Country 2's levels are like more stretched to be zany and different. Where Country 1, like the different cave levels as you progress, introduce small new ideas, right? Like one of them, you have to turn the on and off switch for the zombie creatures. One of them, you have squawks as a lamp. Like, they're simple ideas, right? Like, they're not completely wildly Mario Galaxy creative new ideas, but that's where it kind of like slowly introduces these ideas. Like, yeah, you are just playing. It's the purity to being like, yeah, you are just playing a monkey running through a snow level, but this level has this one new thing, or this level has the ostrich, or this level has this element. It's not. You're right. But I guess I just love the restraint to that and the purity to that, and also where a lot of other games start to feel like games, if you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, I'm Mario, I don't really believe that I'm actually in this world, I'm just kind of like in this collecting bouncy place. Where Donkey Kong Country, the first one, actually kind of sells me that it's a believable world, if that makes any sense. Like, there's not glitzy little collectibles everywhere, and there's not all these things. Like, no, you are just simply a monkey climbing the mountain to get your bananas back. Like, it's this restraint and purity that is all too lost on art games as an art form, I think. So that's my justification. But yeah, I think it's a nostalgia factor too. Nostalgia also weighs into it because I remember and we'll get to that in our memories. But couple honorable mentions here. Games that were also rare that I know we had and played: Blast Corps, now on Nintendo Switch Online. We had Battletoads for Super Nintendo, which is funny enough rare.
Yeah. Jet Force Gemini.
Jet Force Gemini. I never played it, but I do want to give it a go on Switch Online. And though I don't think the game's great.
Banjo Kazooie
64, Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie, Star Fox Adventures, Mickey USA Racing. Not a good game.
Yeah.
Now, and I just want to quickly touch, Derek. So Banjo and Banjo Tooie are not on your list.
I just never played them enough.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I remember we rented Banjo Kazooie and I rented Banjo Tooie. They're also on Xbox, which I gave a little bit of a go on. But
so I played a little bit on the Xbox, like the gameplay or the Rare Replay.
Yep.
And my issue simply is I realized that I don't like collectathon games. It just, like, you realize that, oh my god, I collected everything as level, and then I'm at the new level, I'm like, I have to collect all those things again?
Yeah.
Like, like, they're not even fun ways to do this. It's just like running up the path and sliding down the hill and make sure you grab the last few musical notes. Like, I don't like collecting games.
I 100% agree with you. And where something like a 3D Mario game, like, it's just fun to move, Banjo-Kazooie does not have that feeling to me.
Agreed.
Like, I can't run around with Banjo in a padded room and still have fun. I can with every single 3D Mario game. So that's something that was missing. And also, I want to mention that Banjo-Tooie had such bad frame rate on N64. It was the first time I vividly remember games giving me horrific migraines from frame rate problems. And I think I don't know how I suffered through Perfect Dark, because that game has frame rate problems too. But my god, Banjo-Tooie's frame rate issues and just could not do it. And I also find the art style of both Banjo and Banjo-Tooie kind of garish. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like a horrifying cartoon nightmare. And the voices, and it just felt like they were the creativity doesn't line up in a way where, like, with Donkey Kong, it just feels like the art style really lands in this kind of like pseudo melodramatic world where Banjo-Kazooie is just like, I'm strapped into a straitjacket and thrown into a kindergarten cartoon and I can't get out. Like, it's just horrifying. But anyways, Derek, let's talk about our 3 memories. We'll do this quickly so we can talk about what we've been playing.
Okay.
Just give me your 3 memories, my little anecdotes.
Yeah, I mean, I already talked about a bunch of them. Like, I would say 007 Goldeneye, Proximity Mines, the facility is definitely one. Love that. It was just one of those, everyone did it. It was kind of like one of those things that everyone at school and everyone across the globe had tried Proximity Mines only on the facility.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is, this is kind of a weird moment, but like, I remember vividly on Diddy Kong 2, I beat a level, and you know how like they have the ending sequence where like Diddy plays the boombox and then Dixie plays the guitar.
Yeah.
One time I had the boombox turn gold, and I swear to God it happened, and I could never reproduce it. And it was the days before like you could look it up on the internet, and I was like, I swear to God, there's a way to make it gold. And I Googled it like maybe a year ago, and there is like some weird graphical glitch that can randomly happen that makes the,
Oh my God,
the
so it's
boombox
real?
gold. Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, I wasn't like a 5-year-old that was just misremembering. Like it actually
Luigi
was a
was
thing.
in Mario 64. It's all true.
Exactly, it's like one of
It's
those
a glitch.
moments. Yeah,
It's a glitch when the cat turns green.
And the other one I would just throw on there would be Perfect Dark playing counter co-op with you, because that was like just an awesome moment of just like playing a game with my brother.
For sure. So mine, I remember, I mean, we've kind of touched on these. Getting Donkey Kong Country. I remember other kids in the neighborhood had it, and I got it for Easter of like 1995 or 4, I don't remember. But I remember I just was so excited to get it that I just grabbed it and ran and played it. And I also remember beating it, being the really young beating it, like, and being the first of the kids in the neighborhood to beat it. Like, no one else was able to get that. We were all so young, right? So it was like you could barely get to the save point in the second world type of thing. And I remember it's like you just crawl to that next save point because it was so hard each level. But it's, I mean, I honestly think it's taught me about game design, taught me about hand-eye coordination, and taught me about memorization patterns. Like it's better than a school was for me.
Yeah.
And the other thing I mentioned already, the Perfect Dark hype train, just how hyped I was and seeing it get amazing reviews and getting all into game reviews and stuff. And then the third one is actually Banjo being announced for Smash Bros. Because I know it's not really rare, but it is kind of.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was like this thing that seemed like an impossibility forever becoming possible. It's probably the most wild game announcement ever. And even thinking about Mario RPG Remake, which is like a thing of dreams, still nothing will top Banjo being in Smash Bros. Because we remember we had it on GameCube, and it was just like, or you had it on GameCube, and at that point Rare had already been sold, and it was just kind of like this kind of like almost joke that people would make on message boards. Like, what's your favorite character? Banjo. And it actually happened, and he's one of my mains, and he's great to play as. Just awesome.
Yeah, that's a great memory.
Anyways, Derek, so let's talk about what we've been playing. I have been playing a few games.
Okay, you go first.
So I already talked about Goldeneye, so I won't touch on that. I am now going back to replay Resident Evil 4, the Ada missions, Ada Chronicles. And
Separate ways?
Separate ways. And I'm not
on Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Resident Evil 4 Remake, Separate Ways.
Okay.
And I'm appreciating it a lot more now because it feels like I'm revisiting the game versus like playing it right after. So it feels kind of like I'm getting a refresh on it, but like in an alternate reality. And I've started to encounter some of the things that are very different about it. Like some of the encounters are completely different. I fought an El Gigante in a whole different area. So I'm like starting to really enjoy it. And
So you haven't beaten it yet, though?
no, I'm like not even. I'm only in the castle.
Oh yeah, there's some good new content in it.
For sure. And my plan actually is to beat this before I jump into Evil West, because I just downloaded Evil West. It's on Game Pass. Didn't even realize. So I'm gonna do this game first before I get into play Evil West.
So my personal opinion with Evil West is, so I beat the whole game with my friend Neil. I would strongly recommend you find someone to play it with.
Yeah,
it's really fun on its own.
Me and Mike are gonna do it.
Okay, yeah, and so you should always play together though, because your single player save file is not the same as your co-op save file. So like, just always play the same. Only play co-op with the same person.
Okay, good to know. And
Super fun.
The other game that I've been playing, or I just started playing, it's called The Finals. Have you heard of this?
I feel like I've heard of it. I didn't know it came out. I didn't. Is it on Game Pass?
It's free to play. So it's a first-person shooter. I played a bunch yesterday with Adrian. He was like, you got to download this game and play it. And it's kind of like a 4-on-4 mission-based shooter. It's got a little bit of Overwatch in it, where you can choose a light, medium, or heavy shooter. And like the light one has like more like Dishonored style versatility, like you can whip through the air. The medium is like your typical shooter, and then the heavy is like slow, but like you mow guys down and it's hard to kill a heavy. And this
is an arena shooter. It's not a single player game.
It's not a single player game. It's an online arena shooter.
Was there not a first-person shooter game that like reviewed badly that everyone loved that came out last year? It got like 65s. Like it was. I thought it was called the competition. Like
I honestly don't know. To be honest, I had never heard of this game. Like he's like, I had literally never heard of this game until he told me to download it. I searched it. I was like, where has this game ever been? I downloaded it, and for the first, I want to say the first half an hour, I was like, oh, it's free to play. It's got that disgusting Fortnite style user interface where there's shit everywhere on the screen trying to make me buy things with certain currencies. I'm like, this is a disgusting user interface. I don't know what I'm doing. But when I started to figure it out and I started to get into the actual gameplay, the gameplay's a lot of fun. It feels like zanier than a Call of Duty, and it's just like it's like Overwatch. It's like the feeling of Overwatch. You know what I mean? Like when your team is destroying. But it's free, and the other cool thing about it is the game is like fully destructible worlds, right? Like you can blow apart a wall. So it's cool. Like the levels take place in like big cities. And you know you can jump way up buildings, or you can like go inside a building and like run up the stairs, and like there's buildings fully designed, or you can blow open a wall. So it's got these really cool elements to it, and like one of the missions is a platform where you have to like get on the moving platform, and like you know it's kind of like a Splatoon, where it's like ride your platform to the end goal. But the platform like goes through the building, so as it's going through the buildings will like destroy. It's just I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm gonna probably play a little bit more too. So the finals.
That sounds cool. Okay, and you're playing on Xbox?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it. I'll play with you.
It's. I believe if you have PS5, you can play with us. Like people were clearly doing keyboard and mouse in our game.
Yeah, but I have an Xbox. I'll play on the Xbox
for sure. Okay. Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, we might play tonight at around 9 p.m.
I'm playing with Neil and Andy tonight.
The finals?
No, we're playing Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer.
Is it fun? Well, tell me what you've been playing.
So yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is when my friends are free. It's honestly I've been playing the same games as last podcast. As crazy as it sounds. You know, Helldivers 2, still enjoying it. I've kind of fallen off it a bit recently. Final Fantasy 7 I've shelved for a while. The main game I've been playing is Unicorn Overlord.
You still haven't beat it.
No, I'm probably 75% done now. It's a really meaty game. Loving it a lot. Super, super fun. Every time I play more, I'm like, the battles get harder. My characters get cooler abilities to kind of play around with. And I just love the art style so much and the characters. So that's kind of my main game. And then when I'm not playing that in the basement, I'm upstairs playing Balatro, which is like super, super addictive.
You played on Switch, right?
No, I play on PC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just such an amazing game. Like to me, I think I like it more than Slay the Spire, which is saying a lot because I love Slay the Spire. Like it's probably my favorite deck building game ever. Wow. It just is so fun to pick up and play. Like there's so many options to do a run. Yeah, couldn't be more positive praise for that game. Like I think currently my game of the year is probably Helldivers. But Balatro might actually end up taking it.
So I want to hear about why you stopped playing Final Fantasy VII. Like, it just got boring or what?
No, I will definitely go back to it. It's that I was jumping between so many games, and I was kind of like, well, I'm playing Helldivers when my friend wants to play. I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima when my other friends want to play. I'm playing Balatro when I'm upstairs. And I so between Unicorn Overlord and Final Fantasy VII, I was kind of going back and forth. But the thing is, Unicorn Overlord is like a game, every moment to me is really fun. And I was like, oh, I really want to go back and like tweak my build or go back and like do the next mission or find the next character or, you know, whatever. Where Final Fantasy VII is like, I really, really enjoy it. But it's like, oh, I have a huge open world to do all the things that I want to do in right now. And I actually want to do them, but I'm not really compelled to do them at that moment. So I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just finish Unicorn Overlord. Then I'll get back to Final Fantasy VII whenever I'm in the mood. Like, it's like such a long game that feels kind of, it's so good, but it just feels checklisty at sometimes. And I just need breaks from it. It's not that it's bad. It's just like, it's hard to grind that out over 70 hours or 60 hours. Yeah. Where I find, even though Unicorn Overlord is very similar in the idea that all the gameplay is the same, it's like, it's just nonstop fun to me. It's like there's so much theory behind it and like building a team that works together and they all have their skills that help each other and power each other's attacks up, and then they only work on certain enemies and you have to find those enemies. Like it
sounds gamier.
Yes, that's a way better way to put it. Like the game loop is way more addicting, where Final Fantasy VII is like it's like a story game that has a really great story and great polish, but the actual gameplay stuff is like not as fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point in my life where I much prefer games that feel gamey like the entire time.
Yeah, like, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying Final Fantasy VII isn't a fun game to play. Like I'm not bored by it in any means. It's just that it's daunting in some ways, where it's like, oh man, do I have to spend? Am I going to spend 6 hours just doing this one chapter, or am I just going to rush through the story and not feel like I got all out of the game that I'm enjoying? Like, I don't know.
No, it's kind of a thing with big open world games, right? Like even
Yeah.
even for me to think about playing like The Last of Us again, even though like those are great games, like it's like, oh, I gotta sit through the story and you gotta do this walking segment and then this part. It's like I just kind of want to like jump in and play a game and get to the.
Well, did you do the roguelite of The Last of Us 2?
No.
I haven't done that either, but I want to. But like that sounds exactly what you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just missions where you kill things.
Well, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, you didn't. I thought you would have played that instantly.
My PS4 is not even plugged in.
I guess when you get a PS5.
Yeah. Anyways, what else have you been playing, Derek? Is that it?
That's it for me. Like Balatro and Unicorn Overlords is the main stuff I've been playing.
Yeah. Well, that's all I've been playing, but I'm gonna play some more today.
Yeah. So what's the next game you're gonna get before we head out here?
To be honest, I don't even know.
Or looking forward to, at least.
I guess
any 2024 games.
Honestly, like no, like maybe.
I know Hellblade. I know Hellblade comes out in World of Goo is I think August. But are you excited for Hellblade?
No, doesn't Hellblade come out in like 3 days?
I thought it came in like 2 weeks, but something like that.
Or I thought it was May 8th. No, it's May 21st, I think. I'm excited for it, but it feels like I'm just kind of like a movie experience. I'm hoping it surprises me, but I have zero hype. Honestly, it's the same thing we said before. I'm really excited for Plucky Squire. It looks better and better every time I see it. World of Goo and Indiana Jones, I think, will be a fun time. So, other than that, maybe Nintendo World Championship.
Nice.
I'm kidding. No, Woolly World. Whenever they announce it,
you're gonna will that into existence.
It's gotta happen. They put it on 3DS. It's gotta happen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to World of Goo 2, Paper Mario, and the Elden Ring DLC comes out next month, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. This has been. It's like we've talked about before. It's not a very exciting year game-wise for me, but it's good. It's the kind of year where I want to just kind of beat other games, maybe replay some old games, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your thoughts on Evil West. Yeah, I think you'll like that a lot. It's like truly gamey, where it's just you're going from one crazy fight to the next.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got to crush Resident Evil 4 though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right,
you'll enjoy the changes.
Well, that's a very long podcast. I think we're out of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well that's Nintendo Bros signing out.
This is Derek. See you later.
Cool.